Hey everybody, I'm way behind, I think probably everybody else in the Star Trek universe, having just binge watched Star Trek Strange New Worlds. But I have to say the reason I binge watched is because I found myself going from one episode to the next, to the next, to the next, took a day break, did some work, came back, and finished it. Because it's damn good. As a person whose history with Star Trek, the original series, goes all the way back to 1966, and then the 1975 and 1976 Oakland conventions, and our Star Trek club at Bret Harte Junior High School, Star Trek Strange New Worlds feels like the original series. And that's the best compliment I can give it. That's the highest compliment I can give it. It was edgy, like Star Trek. It took liberties, like Star Trek. And yet it managed to stay just slightly within canon, but, do some twists here and there and still make it interesting, like Star Trek. Quality of Mercy was outstanding. First of all, I got to start with Paul Wesley as James T. Kirk. First of all, he's not Chris Pine. Chris Pine was James T. Kirk for one reason. You have to understand that if you're going to get James T. Kirk right, you got to get William Shatner right. That's just the way it goes. William Shatner made that character essentially. Well, Gene Roddenberry really made the character, but Shatner gave life to it and popularized it by the way he played it. And that's all enduring. You can't change that. And Chris Pine portrayed Captain Kirk by saying, first, I'm going to be William Shatner. And Paul Wesley didn't do that. And so because he didn't do that, I felt he got 80% of it right. Now, that's the bad news. It's also the good news, because he got 80% of it. So I give Paul Wesley high marks. That's a hard job to step into. And, hey, look, we're stuck with him, if you will. And it's not a bad place to be. Anson Mount is Captain Christopher Pike as much as Bruce Campbell was. The one thing they both have in common is they're both deliberative. They they play Pike as we expect Pike to be. And Anson shows what I would call, and to a extent Bruce Campbell too, a 21st century male approach. Not quite as aggressive as you would like, which basically gives an open door to Kirk, doesn't it? And that brings me to Quality of Mercy. Quality of Mercy for me was a study in 1960s man, or if you like 1960s white man, versus 21st century white man, both as captains of the Enterprise. And 1960 white man in America was aggressive, a shoot first, ask questions later type, who believed that he had the best idea and was willing to bend the rules to get his way. That doesn't at all mean that's a bad thing. And it describes Captain James T. Kirk to a T. It also describes that persona that gave birth to a Pa Americana. The 21st century version is less that. More willing to negotiate, more willing to share power. And in that, reacts a little too late. And if you want to see a modern day version of what I'm talking about, look at what Russian President Vladimir Putin is doing in the way of invading Ukraine, and how slow we are to respond and basically just let him do it rather than giving him a 1960s white man punch in the face. Think about it. Which do I prefer? Hey, I was born in 1962. I think you can figure that one out. Aggression, appropriately applied, is good. Intellectually applied is even better. But you have to be aggressive. And that's, I think, the lesson of quality of mercy. And I think it's the kind of study of Star Trek that takes me back to the making of Star Trek that was written by David Gerrold, when he talked about, he said 1960s man. You would say, why am I saying 1960s white man? Because, look, in our culture, what we call white privilege is the privilege to be confident, to be aggressive, to be risk-taking. I don't know if it's so much a privilege as a desire. Something that I do wish that we as African Americans would simply adopt rather than complaining about. That's another story for another time. I like Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It is a breath of fresh air by reaching essentially back into the past and rejiggering stories for the present in the way that the next generation did. It reminds us of the value of Star Trek. It reminds us of what we like about Star Trek. And in some cases don't like. But it's just damn good. More on this. Subscribe to Zenny62 and bookmark OaklandNewsNow blog.com.